front section, and you can see that window area was sort of, it's black because I had painted the inside because I'm going to be putting the control area cockpit in there. So there is a cut here for the windows, and there's three pieces that come with the kit. Actually, I didn't get them, but I wasn't going to use them anyway. They're windshield pieces that actually go on the outside, and there's windows cut in them, and the reason they only cut this much out was because that's where the windows ended on the part that he puts on with the supplies with the kit. But the real model doesn't have the window section protruding from the hull. It's actually it's flush. So what I did was I made my own piece. You can see the front sections in, and I haven't touched up the area on the top and bottom yet. And the side pieces I had made, and I'm gonna cut. You can see I traced out with pencil where I need to remove, and I need to remove that part of the hole so I can put this piece in flush with the hole, and then clean it all up so it joins up with the centerpiece and meets up in that corner like that. So it all looks like it's part of the hole. It'll just look a lot cleaner. That's the way it should look anyway, because it really is distracting. If you look at it and this piece sticks out, it doesn't look like I want it to. So I'm going to customize this a little bit, make it look a little better. I'm going to cut this out using probably just going to use a Dremel cutoff wheel and cut this piece out and then file it so it's, you know, it fits that part that I had made. I did it on both sides. So I'll show you how that looks when I get it done. Alright, so I got the windows pretty much in after I cut the sides to fit the part. So it's all seated in there. And what I'm doing now is sealing up all around the edge that there was a gap. It actually wasn't even, this part wasn't cut right because, I guess because the parts were meant to fit over, it wasn't an exact cut. So I had to, even if I made a part that fit right in the spot, it wouldn't have, you know, you still have to clean it up. So there's some gaps around here that I'm filling in with putty, and again I'm using the Squadron putty, and this is I believe it's solvent based putty, so I'm using acetone to, I'm not actually sanding down all this putty. What I'm doing is the first coat I'm being very liberal in going around all the areas that I need to fill in, and then after it's good and dry, I'll use acetone on a paper towel, and I'll just go over and wipe off all of this excess as much as I can, and then the rest I'll use a Q-tip. I'll dip the Q-tip in acetone and I'll go around, and it basically dissolves the putty, which is huge because you can fill in basically any area that you want and not have to get sandpaper in there. Obviously I have to do a lot of cleanup work on this, but I'm also cleaning up the part because I did wash this and I primered it, and after I primered it, some of the paint wasn't sticking in certain areas. It kind of, I don't know why, but in some areas it didn't stick. So I'm going over it lightly with some 220 grit fine sandpaper pad, and this is just going to rough up the surface. And if you keep at it with this will take the paint off. But I'm just roughing up the surface so the next coat will stick to it. That's one reason why I primer these things first, and then also it'll bring out all the imperfections, which there were a couple here. There's one here, and you get these, I guess, you know, when you're making a resin part, I guess, I don't know, who knows. And there's one here, and if I sand these, I have to do this, so if I don't, I could just leave the imperfection, but if I do it and sand it down, I might mess up some of these panel lines, so I'll have to rescribe those. So that's one thing you have to think about, you know. Do you want to live with the imperfection, or do you want to rescribe panel lines? That's basically your choice, because you will have to, because they're not that deep, and if you sand, even if you blow them out with compressed air, you're still gonna lose some. So you have to rescribe them. If you don't, then you know there'll be a big spot there where you can see where you sanded it down. So once I get this all cleaned up, there's a couple of little greeblies that go on the top here, and then I can fit the control room in here after I run all my fiber optics to it, the rest of my fiber optics, and I can attach that, and obviously I'll have to mask this off when I paint this section, but then I can, once I have the cockpit in here, I can attach this part to the model, to the rest of it, and it looks like it should join up pretty well, so we'll see. So back to the cockpit, I made some changes to it. I had to add more lights to it because the lights I had in there were not bright enough. I thought they would be, but I had to add a couple more up front, which are cool white, I'm sorry, warm white, 3mm LEDs, or 2mm, I think they're 2mm LEDs. I also put in the rest of the fiber optic, and there's some blinking lights in here. So I don't know, hopefully you can see. There's a couple blinking. I didn't go crazy, so it's not super intense blinking. There's a couple of lights blinking here and there just to indicate maybe there's a slight problem. You could see this group of lights here is changing color, and there's a couple of other lights in the front that are connected to that as well. So it's a slow changing LED, and the circuitry is actually in the LED itself, so I don't have to, you know, wire up a board or anything for that. It's a 5mm. It's called the slow changing RGB. Now it's purple. It's really cool. It actually changes every couple of seconds, and it fades into the next color, and it kind of changes things up in a situation like this. So if you look at it, you'll probably notice the color change, but it's not like in your face, like blinking really fast. They make fast changing ones too. This is a slow changing. So I tested it, this piece in the front of the hole, and it looks like it's bright enough. So I'm going to install that, and I'm going to wire up the rest of the. There's some like headlights in the front that I'll wire up, and I'll show you those. All right, making some progress. So I got the cockpit in, and the headlights on. They're throwing some pretty nice light down. I have to clean up some light blocking stuff here. Also, there's some windows on the side. I don't know if you're going to be able to see. There's two small windows on the side. I had to install a couple more, two more LEDs because the cockpit is in front of those windows, so they're not catching any light from inside the cockpit. So I had to put two LEDs on the sides here to light up those two windows. I thought it would look better if those are lit up. And the cockpit's looking good. It's a little tough to see in there. Just the way that it fits in. There's not much room to look in there, but that's fine. Well, I had to bust out my big clamps for this one. So the sides are on, and there was no way to get good leverage to hold this piece on while it was drying. So I epoxied this entire seam on both sides. I couldn't even use CA glue to tack it in place because it's just too big of a part. And there was, you had to line up the walls with the walls of this section, so everything had to kind of line up at once. So there's epoxy that's curing right now. So the whole front piece is attached. And like I said, plenty of room in there for running my wires and cleaning everything up. I started tidying up some of the wires, but I have to clean everything up so it connects, and then I have to figure out how I'm gonna run the power to this thing, and I think I'm just gonna put a plug on the bottom. Okay, I got it all together. It's dried. I think the epoxy's cured, so I took my clamps off. Everything seems in good shape. All my lights work, and the top is open so I can finish up all my wiring, and I need to run lights to the bottom, and I need to put the entranceway on the bottom. So I still have a lot of work to do to get into the interior, so the top piece is going to be one of the last things that I'll do. I'm not going to put that on until I have the tracks on and the bottom section on and all that completed and lit. So I have some work to do before that goes on. The crawler, I was looking at pictures of it, and there are I have to fix, there's a part that goes there. You can see there's light coming out of these little openings because the interior is getting some light from the LEDs and that spotlight and stuff. Those openings I had drilled out because in the filming model they're actually open. The ones down on the bottom are not open, so there's a piece behind it which is going to stay there, but these are dark, but they're open. So what I'm doing is I drilled through there. I don't want any light to come out of there, so I made a little box to put behind it so it blocks any light from showing, but it will keep the recess there, so you'll be able to see that there is an opening. And you can actually see on the other side that little box is already installed. You can see it down there, and I just glued that on, so those holes are there. So I have a little bit of work to do. Now I'm actually working on the tracks, and I'll show you what's going on with those.